Hi everyone, I hope you're well. I've been catching up with lots of sales managers over the course of the last few weeks just to catch up with them and see how they're getting on and how they're managing to stay motivated and keep their sales teams motivated through these, really exceptional circumstances. And recognising that, we're not key workers and the work that we do, isn't saving lives, it's not life and death, and we're incredibly grateful to those people who are at the front line. I also want to acknowledge that, we're not saving lives, but we've got a really important role to play in terms of saving livelihoods. And in terms of business, it's tough for everybody, but for salespeople, it's really difficult. We've been used to bringing on board new customers, closing deals, achieving our objectives, and a lot of the key measures that we use to sort of benchmark our success have been taken away from us. And it can be really, really difficult, when you're not getting those sales and you feel like nobody's ever going to say, yes again. So it's really about how do we as sales managers, keep those salespeople from losing their sense of self. How do we make sure that they come out the other end of this, even more skilled, even more focused, even more motivated and ready to fly when the economy starts to move again. So I've distilled the conversations that I've been having with lots of sales managers over the course of the last sort of 3 weeks into 4 key areas, really. I think the things that they've said to me, the things that they're doing, fit into 4 key areas, and I've sort of distilled those, and I want to share those with you in the hope that you'll probably recognise that you're doing some, if not all, of this stuff already, and hopefully there'll be a couple of things in there that you can perhaps either add to the work that you're doing, or just to consider the balance between the 4 things that the managers have talked about that they're engaging in with their sales teams. So I'm going to go through each one of those sort of one by one and add a little bit more detail to that as we go through. The first area that a lot of sales managers talked to me about was really about being kind, being human, being real, being vulnerable, being a human being, and how important it is to make sure that, of course, you'll be checking in with your salespeople in regular one-to-ones and you'll have dedicated calls to talk about progress and objectives, but it's really about setting aside some separate time, either on a call, a separate call, or within the call, to really talk about them and how they're coping, to inquire about how their day's going, what challenges they're facing. Many of us have got children at home, we're homeschooling, we're worrying about relatives, we're perhaps supporting them, we're going out there sourcing food, we are making several meals a day. So we've got a lot going on between the normal hours of 9 to 5 where we'd normally be completely focused on the job. So it's really making sure that we are checking up on their mental health, that we're making sure that they've got an opportunity to vent if they need to. You don't necessarily want them to be venting off to their 9-year-old about their frustrations with juggling. They can do that with us. Some people find it really difficult. Some people don't like to admit that they're finding things tough. It's just not in their makeup to do so. So I think what we as sales managers have to do sometimes is go there first. We've got to demonstrate a little bit of our vulnerability by sharing some of that stuff first, by saying, I've had a really difficult time getting into work today, getting into the right mindset to pick up the phone and to make calls. It's just been really tough today. I found it really hard to get out of bed, or I've read the same report 6 times and it's taken forever for the information to sink in. I don't know what's the matter with me. So just for us to be open about the fact that, these are odd times. These aren't normal circumstances. We've got loads of distractions going on. And this is a conversation really, I call it a check-in, not a check-up. It really is about checking in with you, making sure that you're okay. I'm not trying to catch you, not working or loading the dishwasher or whatever that is. This is really about me checking in with you as a human being, as a person that I care about, and making sure that you're okay. Giving us a chance to offload, have a laugh about stuff that is quite ridiculous at times, and just being that sort of listening ear and that sounding board. So that was the key area that came out from most of the people that I spoke to. Really, was it's about engaging with your team on a human level and not making every conversation that you have with your team members about work. Making sure that you're ring fencing some time just to check in with them and to talk about them and how they're doing. The next area was about helping your sales teams find a way through. So whether that's giving direction or giving them the opportunity to consider new objectives. The objectives that were set previously probably aren't relevant anymore. So it's about helping salespeople to find a new way through. And that involves thinking about, how am I going to tackle these conversations? How am I going to speak to existing customers? What's my opening going to be? What am I going to say to them? What are the key objectives that I now want to set for the calls that I'm going to make to existing customers or possibly new business? Because if salespeople are just making calls in the way that they always have done, it's not going to work. And they are going to come across as, tone deaf to the feeling and the mood that's out there, and that's not going to be great for building rapport. So we need to have conversations with them about how they're going to tackle those conversations. We need to work that through with them, whether that's in the group or whether that's as individuals, and taking each customer, depending on the customer numbers one by one. Then, okay, so how are we going to start that call off? What does that opening sound like? What questions are we going to ask? And what does a good outcome for that call look like? Is that about gathering some additional information? Is that about classifying that customer in some way, or building a profile, adding to the profile that we have about that customer? So we've got to think about a different set of objectives and a different approach, and we've got to help salespeople work their way through what that looks like. Also recognising that the approach that might work for the next couple of weeks, as things start to change, we need to be able to adapt again. So it's that constant dialogue of, what's working, what's the objective, do we need to shift tact, and how is that being received by customers? What's the feedback that you're getting from customers? So really, helping them find a way through was another key theme that came from the conversations that I'd had. Some sales managers I spoke to had said the way through is that we purely focus on our existing customers. So actually, I don't want you to make any new business activity. So that was one sales manager's approach to that. Of course, depending on the industry and depending on the customer numbers, that might be right for them. It's not necessarily going to be the case for every sales team. Others had said, well, we're going to balance. We're still going to do those new business conversations, but within our opening, we're going to be really explicit about the fact that we are not phoning to try and sell them anything. We're going to include within our opening that real take the pressure off, and to say that the purpose for the conversation, that the objective of the conversation is to really see if there is a match in terms of that business's needs and how you might be able to partner with them and work with them in the future when things do start to move. And they've been having lots of success with that. The minute you say, I've got no expectation, I know that people aren't buying at the moment, I understand your circumstances, this is really, for me to just check in with you, see how you're doing, and to see if, there might be a fit potentially in the future. So that was the second key area, really helping them come up with a strategy, come up with a plan, and find a way through. And also setting objectives that mean that at the end of each day, aside of the output and the sales revenue, which might not be coming in the way that it did, it's highly unlikely it is going to be, that they can still look back and say, today has been a productive day because I've profiled those top 10 customers. I've had 5 really meaningful conversations against the objectives that I set myself for those calls. So it's our jobs to, at least in the beginning, to help them, find that way through. So that was the second key area. So the third area, which was absolutely music to my ears as a learning and development specialist, was about developing skill. So it's all about using this opportunity to hone and develop everybody's skills across the team. It was recognising that, you know, when times are good, training and coaching can often take a bit of a backseat. And even when we do some training, we don't always have the opportunity to go back and reinforce that learning. So if we consider the sort of learning and forgetting curve, we know that it takes sort of 4 repetitions over a relatively short period of time before we stand a chance of that being embedded and then applied. So we now have this unique opportunity to spend some of the time, invest some of the time that we now have in developing and training and coaching our sales teams to make sure that they are fighting fit when the opportunities do become more plentiful. So, you know, it's an analogy that's been used many times before, but if you think about those professional footballers out there and those professional athletes out there, you know, they're not taking this as an opportunity to sit on the sofa and watch Netflix for 12 hours a day. They will still be training hard and keeping themselves in, you know, good physical condition. And it's the same with our sales teams. So it's about coming up with a mechanism, if you don't have one already, that helps you identify the key tasks or the key elements of the role, whether that's lead sourcing, pre-call preparation, researching the customer, opening the call, questioning to understand needs, you know, product knowledge, technical knowledge, some sort of framework that enables you to do some sort of, you know, even if it's a fairly top line assessment of where their skills are currently and where the key opportunities are to develop and improve those skills, then it gives you a framework to start thinking about what things could I be doing over video call, or what could I send them to read, or what could I send them to look into and to do, what exercises could I set them, what tasks and activities could I set them that are really going to help develop and sharpen those skills, so that they can benefit from them now, but also, as I said, when the opportunities start to become more plentiful. The other thing that enables you to do is to think about members of your team who are really competent, really capable, you know, at that expert level for a particular skill, and to utilise them in supporting other team members in developing those skills, you know, so getting them to hold a little Zoom session about how they, you know, are currently opening calls and how that's working, getting them to talk about or take them through, you know, how they utilise your CRM system to really make the most out of the data that's in there. So it's coming up with a plan, and it's thinking about how do I use this time to hone and develop the skill set of my team, because that's going to be the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? Once they've got those skills embedded, whatever's happening out there, you know that they are best placed to take advantage of that opportunity. So it is a real investment in that time, and again, it's coming up with a plan that is a blended approach. So it's not all you doing you know, one-to-one Zoom sessions or group Zoom sessions. It's a combination of activities, guided reading, you know, watch this TED talk. So it's you know, your responsibility to source out some great stuff, or to give them the task with, you know, sharing with the rest of the team what was their last interesting thing that you read or watched that you found really, really valuable to you in your role. Another really nice thing to do, I've heard a rumour that Barack Obama used to ask his kids this at the end of every day, but is to talk about, you know, what key thing have you learnt today? What was the thing that you learnt today, or that you learnt this week? So what did you know, what was the best thing about today? What was the best conversation you had today? And what was the key learning that came out of today for you? So that they can reflect back and think, you know, even if that was a tough conversation, well, I learned that this would perhaps have been a better way to say it, or actually I learned that when I said it this way, the barriers came down and the customer really, really opened up. So using this time as an opportunity to develop skills is another key theme that came through. So think about what you can be doing to add that into the mix, or to increase the amount of that you're doing if that's not featuring heavily in the conversations that you're having at the moment. The final theme that came through, unsurprisingly for sales managers and salespeople, was about motivation. So it was really about making sure that as sales managers, we are keeping people buoyant and positive and upbeat and motivated, whilst recognising, you know, all the things I said about keeping it real and being human and being vulnerable. You know, it's also part of our roles to keep people motivated. And you know, there's that famous saying, you know, character is what you do when nobody's watching. Well, for sales teams, really, it's about what they do when no one's buying. You know, a true test of a sales team is what they get up to when nobody's buying. So this is really thinking about how do we help salespeople stay motivated. And if we're honest, none of us can be 100% motivated all of the time. It's just not possible. We're all going to have those peaks and dips in our motivation levels. We're all going to have those days when you just really, you know, you don't want to have a conversation with your nearest and dearest, let alone a potential new customer. So it's really recognising the difference between being motivated and being disciplined, and that being disciplined is all about doing those things that you don't necessarily want to do, but you've made a commitment to yourself and others that you're going to do. So it's, you know, what disciplines can you help them set in place? Is that a discipline of making sure that we've made so many calls before a certain point in the day? Is that about making sure that, you know, as a minimum, we've done these 5 things, you know, every day without fail? So it's making sure that we encourage, you know, a degree of structure, whilst, you know, not detracting from my first point about recognising people have got lots of distractions going on, but that we've got some sort of structure there. We have some sort of discipline that means that even when we're not feeling motivated, we know we've got to drag ourselves to do those minimum 5 things today, and we'll feel better for doing it. You always feel better for doing it, don't you? It's like exercise. You know, you really don't feel like doing it and you force yourself to do that half an hour, you never regret it. You feel so much better about yourself and the world afterwards. So as sales managers, part of our responsibility is to help put those disciplines in place, so that, you know, when people aren't feeling motivated, they at least take action, which then in turn is going to help them feel motivated. I think in summary, a lot of these things really are the things that when I'm delivering training, sales managers say to me, oh, I'd love to have more time to do that stuff. I'd love to have more time to have, you know, coaching conversations with my team members. I'd love to have more time to go through their customer data with them and really, you know, interrogate that and help them understand the patterns and the trends in their performance or their customer behaviour. And we've now got a massive opportunity to invest time in doing those things, and, you know, to really look back and think, you know, we really made the best out of the opportunity that we had. We didn't just sit back and do the bare minimum. We worked hard as a team. We kept talking. We, you know, we didn't always get it right, but we worked through things together, and we found a way through together, and we've learned a lot, and we can take that learning with us into the future and be even better sales professionals, and our relationship with our sales teams will be even stronger as a result of, you know, taking care of them through this time, being real with them through this time, coaching and developing them, helping them find a way, and helping them find some structure when they're perhaps finding it tough to motivate themselves. So I hope you found that useful. I'd love to hear your feedback, so please do get in touch and let me know the fab stuff that you're doing with your sales teams to get them through these unprecedented times. I wish you and your sales teams the very best, both now and in the future. Thanks again for watching.